Hi, everyone. I see some people are still coming in, so we'll give everyone a few minutes before we get started.
All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Fall Fest, Food Allergy Edition. Just gonna give it another maybe 30 seconds to see if anyone else joins us, and then we'll get started with introductions. All right, so today we're going to discuss food allergies through a fall-themed lens. Just so everyone knows, this webinar is recorded and will be posted later to view, but we won't be sharing anything you put in the chat, so please feel free to participate. Please put your name, your connection to food allergy, and your favorite fall activity in the chat, and we'll go ahead and introduce ourselves. My name is Samantha Sansweet. I am the Director of Education and Student Programs here at CFAAR. My connection to food allergy is that I have a dairy allergy that I've had my whole life, and my favorite fall activity is probably a haunted corn maze.
Okay, I'll go next. I'm Sarah Valaika, and I work at CFAAR on all things related to early childhood. And my connection to food allergy is that I'm a parent of 4 children, one with food allergies. So that's my connection to food allergy. My favorite fall thing, love fall, is I really like visiting a farm in the fall and, you know, all things related to pumpkins and the animals on the farm. I like that. So.
My name is Melissa Engel, and I am a psychology postdoctoral fellow at CFAAR and at Larry Children's Hospital. And my connection to food allergies is that I do food allergy research and clinical work with patients and families, and I've grown up having food allergies and still do. And my favorite fall activity is all things Halloween. And I'm really excited about another program that we will be announcing later tonight.
All right, thank you. All right, so next we're going to go through a basic food allergy 101 overview just to make sure we're all on the same page. So a food allergy is an immune response to foods which the body perceives as a threat. They also have the potential to be life-threatening. And there are 9 top allergens in the US, being peanut, tree nut, egg, milk, shellfish, finfish, wheat, soy, and sesame, but you can be allergic to any food. Anaphylaxis is a severe allergic reaction resulting in symptoms from more than one body system, or if the individual is having difficulty breathing or swallowing, has a weak pulse, or has fainted. So when in doubt, administer epinephrine. It is a safe medication. Common misconception might be that the reason is is that like the reason you go to the ED is to monitor the reaction, not because epi is dangerous. And also be sure to always call 911 and stay with the child if epi is administered until help is arrived. So we're just going to pause here for a quick second. Does anyone have any questions about food allergies in general before we continue? If so, please put them in the chat. All right. So now we're going to do a quick overview of our food allergy education guide. So this was launched back in February, and it's a compilation of all of our food allergy education resources from early childhood all the way through college. As you can see, this is an example of our middle school resources. We have pre-prepared lesson plans ready to go for elementary, middle, and high school with slides, teacher notes, and other activities and assignments ready to use. This was designed for a teacher to educate students on food allergies, but can be applied to any setting, whether it's parents teaching their children, a coach teaching their players, or a youth group, etc. We also have a food allergy training in the early childhood section and a toolkit for navigating the transition to college in the college section. We will be referencing different resources within this guide throughout the webinar, so we'll drop that link in the chat so you can follow along. All right, so now we're going to review some fall food allergy scenarios.
Okay, so fall field trip or outing. Alex's class is going on a school field trip to a pumpkin patch that is famous for their petting zoo and cider donuts. Alex is excited to have fun with his friends, but is nervous about his food allergies. Has anyone had this scenario? Have you had to navigate this? Do you have any thoughts on how you would navigate this? Please enter them into the chat right now if you would like.
And it could be like any similar field trip. It doesn't need to be specifically to a pumpkin patch.
Right. Okay, well, I'm going to get started on some thoughts on this. First thought is we don't really know Alex's age, and that age does make a difference in maybe how you navigate this. However, we just at CFAAR created a back to school resource that I think you could use and adapt to a field trip quite easily. It walks you through, like, maybe you need to, if you're a parent, you might need to talk to the teacher, find out more about it. Usually they send information home. It might involve reminding yourself what the food allergy policy is at the school or what the field trip policy is. You just kind of walk through what you would need to know in advance, and then also how to prepare the child. So Alex, regardless his age, needs to be prepared and have a plan for this outing. One way that you can help Alex is, and it depends, again, maybe is her age, they could figure it out, but you need to know like what you're going to say if you're offered a cider donut or why you're not eating a cider donut. No thanks, I have food allergies. I brought my own, snack. It's in my bag, something like that. Also, this petting zoo. Petting zoos, I've been to a fair amount of them at these kinds of venues. There is a food that some of the animals, they put it in your hand and then you can feed the animals, the goats or whatnot, the llamas. And sometimes it's carrots, but sometimes it's like a mix of like seeds and nuts. So I think it's just helpful to tell Alex there's going to be a petting zoo. Plan to pet the animals for sure, but I'm not sure until we learn more about what the food is, whether we'll be able to feed the animals. So just set the expectations so that Alex is less nervous, has a plan. Also, if you're the teacher, you should be taking the emergency kit, reviewing the emergency action plan of any child with a food allergy. We have an emergency action plan that we're going to put in the chat. It's the state of Illinois one. but really there are other, emergency plans can look different depending on what the healthcare provider uses. The other thing is to just review the plan and know what the adult's plan is on the outing. So a good resource for that could be for anyone on the call to check out our Stop, Look, Ask, Go food allergy education training for early childhood professionals. It's good for parents too. It could be for any age. It's geared to early childhood, but it applies to older kids. It can apply to older kids too. It's free, online, on demand. I think the link will go into the chat. It's in our guide, but in that, it's just important to have maybe have an epi drill or practice what your plan is if you're an adult on this field trip or outing. And if you're the parent, maybe you want to chaperone it depending on what you learn. But those are some kind of, a couple of things to do. And then I'd just like to emphasize the importance of shifting the focus a bit. If you are the teacher or the planner of this outing, maybe consider the other fun things that fall has to offer. Like maybe the class gets a pumpkin and you carve it and you let all the kids get their hands all gooey and pull out the seeds of the pumpkin. Buy some gourds, make some ghost gourds with cheesecloth and glue. There's tons of ideas on things you can do in the fall that are really multi-sensory, especially for the little ones, that are fun, that aren't so food focused. So those are just lots of other options. We also have a CFAAR has a playtime resources handout with some homemade recipes for bubbles, clays, doughs. Those things are super fun for kids. And if you just adapt it to maybe the color of the season, it works. So check it out. So again, to recap, just be familiar with the emergency action plan, check out the early childhood training, and it's full of resources at the end of the training, but you'll see it on page 2, 3, and 4 in the guide. Check out the playtime recipes and use the back to school checklist for field trips and outings too. Melissa and Sam, did you have anything to add to that?
No, I don't
I
think so.
think you covered it.
Yeah, you did a great job.
Okay.
All right, so our next scenario are parties. So in this example, Julie's class won a pizza and cake party for winning the fall readathon. Julie is allergic to milk and doesn't want to go to school that day. So before I get into this scenario, I'm wondering if any of you have had a similar situation to navigate for any type of class party or birthday party involving food as a reward. Sam or Sarah, do any of you want to share either of your quick experiences?
Oh, for sure. Soccer, when the soccer team wins, there's always a pizza party. When there's sports teams often have pizza parties to gather people, gather the team. So this is a common scenario.
Yeah, I feel like I experience and also talk with a lot of the kids that I work with, especially if you're allergic to something like milk or wheat, that's pretty much always in the pizza and the cake that's used for rewards, which can be hard when it feels like almost a punishment sometimes to the kids with the food allergy when it's a reward for everyone else. So there's not really one right way to handle this situation, but several more adaptive ways to do so, just like with all the things that we talk about today. But it's really important to identify why Julie doesn't want to go to school. So she's definitely not looking forward to this party, but it might be because she's afraid of the proximity to her allergens. Like she might be worried about having a reaction from the classroom being full of the foods that she's been taught are dangerous. She also might feel just left out, and it might be hard for her to watch everyone else in her class enjoy this while she doesn't get to participate. she might fear being bullied or teased by other children, or she might just not want to feel different than everybody else. Even if she has her own treat, she might not like the questions that other kids ask about why she's eating something different, or the insensitive comments that people might make, no matter what her age is. And I think that there's a lot of emphasis by physicians and by parents and by schools on physical safety, which is so important and of utmost importance. But as a psychologist, I like to make sure that we're also focusing on kids' social and emotional well-being. And this is a great example of something that parents and teachers and other caregivers can problem solve at the beginning of the school year, because it's probably going to come up, and also can problem solve as a family of how you're going to handle these different parties that your child might be invited to that often involve food that they are allergic to. So in some situations, it's possible that as a caregiver, as like a teacher or a parent, that you can come up with a system so that the child can fully participate. So maybe the treats are only things that are on a certain list of like approved items that you know is safe for the child. Um, or like in this case, maybe the cake could be a cake that's safe for Julie's allergies so that she can participate fully. Or if it was an ice cream party, maybe it's a dairy-free ice cream that everyone gets to eat. And if that's not possible, it can be really helpful if the parents, if the teachers give the parents as much notice as possible so that they can prepare a safe alternative for Julie. It depends on the kids. Some kids are fine with getting like any type of treat. Like if there was cake, they would be fine with their like Oreos that are safe for them, or their other types of like cookies or candy that's safe for their allergies. Whereas other kids would really want like their pizza and their cake that's safe for them, so they can be just like the other kids as much as possible. A lot of times kids keep a bucket or a box of like safe treats at school, which can be helpful. And then the same goes for like going to other birthday parties outside of the school setting. You can try to talk to the people throwing the party and see if there's any way that that there can be provided treats that are safe for the child, or if you can find out what they'll be serving and if you can try to provide a safe alternative for your child. And I think that this is also something it's important to talk to your child about, because every child is different and might respond better or worse to different options. There's not like one right way to do this. But we really think that because impromptu events just come up at school, or some kid brings in X, Y, or Z treats for the entire class, that it can be really good to have some type of safe snack available. And then in terms of where this occurs, like if Julie was really fearful of her, like all the desks in the class now having milk products like on them, maybe this party could be held in a different space, not in the classroom, but outside or in the cafeteria or somewhere else, to give Julie a little bit more sense of safety. And we just want to equip kids with like confidence. So even if the parent or child is a bit fearful of the situation, to work with the kid and the teachers and the other parents, etc., to come up with a plan to set them up for success and inclusion, and making sure that they get to participate safely in some way. And like what Sarah was just saying with the field trips, if you can focus on like the reason for the celebration and not just the food. So like what we like about so-and-so and how we're so excited to celebrate their birthday and so excited to do this activity, rather than everything being about the pizza and the cake, or about like, look how many books you just read, emphasizing things other than the treat while providing the safe treat. Anything that either of you would like to add to that?
I've kind of found it helpful to give kids words to when a peer says, "Oh, you can't have pizza," because that peer loves pizza. They can't imagine that you couldn't have pizza. Just to say, it's just how my body is. I can't have it. And that seems to stop them right then. So it's just maybe something that you could help if you're a parent or if you're a child, like watching this webinar, you could just maybe try that. Just have a response ready for those situations, because sometimes they're a little off-putting in the tone of maybe how they're said to you.
I think that's a great point, and I think it's really dependent on the kid and what they want their response to be and how much information they want to share. Sometimes I think that like short, boring, honest answers are helpful for kids because they sometimes lead to the other child like stopping asking the question rather than like if someone says, "Why are you eating that?" and the kid says, "Because," and then it kind of leads to, "Well, because why?" and it is a kind of like a never-ending cycle. But if they can have like some short, boring, honest answers prepared, that can be helpful, and it's a great thing to practice ahead of time.
Definitely. All right, so next we're going to review some resources that can be applied to this age group, which will all be dropped in the chat. So we have the elementary school section of the guide on pages 5 through 7. Specifically, it might be helpful to have elementary school kids review the peer-to-peer video modeling a discussion about food allergies with both food allergic students and non-food allergic students as a good way to get them comfortable with having these discussions. Next, there's a food label tip sheet created by FAAR that walks you through key buzzwords to look out for when reading a food label specific to the allergen in question. And also on this point, just a general tip from personal experience, use this label sheet to quiz your kids on these buzzwords. I remember when I was younger, my mom would quiz me all the time on different milk-related words. And it was actually really fun for me to learn about my food allergy, and it did save my life a few times. One time, specifically when I was very young, my aunt offered me a piece of pizza at a party. And because I knew my allergies so well, I was able to tell her, like, no, I can't have that. So it's just really important to practice these scenarios and empower kids to advocate for themselves the moment that they know how to talk. And next, consider serving top 9 free snacks at the next party. There's a ton of food allergy friendly brands out there, some of which can be found on page 24 of the college toolkit, which can be found on page 15 of the guide. And I'll talk about more about the college resources towards the end of the webinar. And also you could consider baking a fun treat. So one example of a food allergy friendly recipe for fall is the pumpkin mochi muffin recipe that should be in the chat.
All right, our next scenario is Eric. So we're talking about after school activities, and Eric just got pulled up to play in the 7th grade soccer tournament this weekend. It is an all-day outing. How should he navigate food? He wants to make a good impression and keep his spot on the team. He wants the focus to be on his soccer skills, not on his food allergy. Just want to give an opportunity if anyone has had an experience like this, and maybe you want to share how you handled it or how your child or a student that you worked with handled this.
I mean, I can speak to it a little bit. I've done gymnastics my entire life, and I remember more so in college than when I was younger. I did like the club team at my school for fun, and I remember going away to meets and going out to get food with everyone was always a big stressor. Everyone was super nice about it, and they would always accommodate me and want to, but I'd always feel like a burden in that situation. So it's just something to think about that, any kid with a food allergy might be feeling that way too a little bit.
I think that's a great point, and it's something that I hear a lot about is that like people aren't trying to hide their food allergies, especially in this middle school and like high school range, that they're not really necessarily like embarrassed about them or trying to keep it a secret. They just don't always want that to be the focus of like attention, and they want to be known for like their soccer skills or their singing ability or their debate knowledge or whatever the extracurricular activity is, not for the food allergy. Or even just like if out to dinner with friends, want to be known for like your humor on a date, making a good first impression based on your like conversational skills and personality, not the fact that you have a food allergy, and that unfortunately this is something that is often difficult to hide if you're managing your food allergies safely and with people for a long time, and food is ultimately going to be involved at some point. So in this situation, it's important to think about where Eric is in development. So he's at the start of adolescence, where adolescents really want to fit in. It's developmentally appropriate that Eric just wants to be like the rest of his peers, and that there might be a lot more peer influence than there is like parental influence or teacher influence or coach influence. And if you're seeing something like that in a child Eric's age, like that's great. They're engaging in a developmentally appropriate task of identifying with their peers and gaining independence and autonomy, and also perhaps engaging in greater risk taking, which is all normative part of adolescent development. But it's important to make sure that Eric is still getting the support that he needs during this time, even as he wants to be independent. So making sure that he is supported in having a way to carry his medicine on his own in like a way that makes him feel confident. So there's, you know, lots of different ways that Eric can be carrying his auto injector. So maybe giving him a say in how he carries it, or even in which auto injector he has, if there are multiple options available to him, like per insurance. But just making sure he does it and giving him a say, or making sure that he always has safe snacks with him, but allowing him to choose like what those snacks are, for example. From an adult perspective, it's really important that the chaperones, whether they be like parent chaperones, whether those be coaches, know about Eric's allergies and know about like the signs and symptoms of anaphylaxis and when he would need epinephrine and how to protect him, and also that his peers know where his epinephrine is located. Do either of you, Sam or Sarah, have any further comments on these after-school activities?
I think you did a great job with that response.
Yeah, I think you
I think
covered.
it's a very realistic situation, though. They want to just be on the tournament and be judged for their skills.
Definitely. Also, just wanted to make a quick note. The chat itself is disabled, but you should be able to ask questions in the Q&A section. But if there's any other trouble, please put it in the Q&A section, and we should be able to answer anything that you put in there. All right, so then next, we're going to review some resources that can be applied to this age group. So we have the middle school section of the guide on pages 8 through 10. Again, specifically, it might be helpful to have middle school kids review the peer-to-peer video, modeling a discussion about food allergies with their peers. There's also a PSA assignment that could be a fun way for students to be food allergy advocates and discuss different aspects of living with a food allergy, both mentally and physically. So if you do have a child who does put a PSA together, we would love to see them. So please send them our way and share them with us.
PSA
Also,
is a public service announcement too, in case anyone's wondering.
Also, we have a new student program launching this winter. It's the CFAAR Sciences program, and it's open to students of all ages, starting from middle school through college. It's an opportunity to learn about research and be a young researcher. So over the course of 3 months and 6 modules, students will walk through different parts of the research process at their own pace. They'll be tasked with taking the prepared lesson plans in the guide and conducting their own kind of research study to answer the question, can students increase their food allergy awareness in their community by working with a mentor to promote food allergy education? So depending on student preference, they can present the materials themselves or have a teacher or coach present them. So for example, if the student's teacher agrees to present the materials, the student would collect qualitative data by completing observational notes and administering a pre-post survey to the class. They'll then take the results and analyze their data and present the findings. So if you know of an interested student, have them fill out the interest form linked in the flyer that's being dropped in the chat. All right, so next we're going to discuss homecoming weekend scenario. So Jordan was asked to the homecoming dance and is excited to go, but she is worried about telling her date that she has a food allergy. So we're going to pause for a quick second. And if you have ever experienced or navigated a similar scenario, whether as the child or as the parent, how have you responded or how would you respond? And again, you can put this in the Q&A section.
I just want to point out that I feel like this scenario is very similar to the last scenario, not in terms of really like the content or the age, but just in terms of the theme of like wanting to be seen as like a full person and not be seen as the person that has the food allergy. So I think that that becomes more and more common like throughout adolescence and young adulthood.
Definitely agree. Yeah, this is a scenario that can have, serious implications on a teen's mental and physical health. And so from Jordan's perspective, she might be worried about her date not liking her because of her food allergy or being seen as difficult when trying to make dinner plans for the dance. But she also might just be anxious and stressed out about staying safe during dinner. And I had this exact experience when I was in high school during homecoming. I called ahead to the restaurant and they assured me that the food would be safe. And I double checked with the chef when I got there, and I still ended up having a pretty bad reaction to the food I ate. And luckily I was okay, but mentally it wasn't fun. My night ended early and I felt like I ruined the night for my friends a little bit. And I also, had the experience in high school where it had gotten back to me that a guy I liked didn't want to date me because of my food allergy, because it would make things too difficult. But then, later on, I ended up dating someone who was religious about washing their hands and using mouthwash every time that they ate. So from a parent's perspective, I think it's important to be aware that these situations do happen, but to trust that you have prepared your teen to handle them well and how to respond in an emergency. I think the mental health piece can be difficult, but just being supportive and having open lines of communication can be really helpful. And it also may be necessary to have conversations about some possibly uncomfortable scenarios. So for example, the dangers of kissing someone who has eaten what they're allergic to. My mom's approach was to tell me the story about a girl who had a severe reaction because her boyfriend had eaten peanut butter and she was allergic to peanuts, and then they had kissed. And this might be a bit of an extreme scenario, but it is possible, and it's important that teens are aware of these dangers. Melissa, Sarah, anything to add here?
I just wanted to add that I think that conveying the seriousness is really important, like you mentioned. And I know a lot of teens and young adults who have had success with this by doing it like in a humorous way. Like rather than like saying like, oh, I have an important announcement to tell you. I have this life-threatening allergy and like I could die if you kiss me, for example, like having a humorous, like joking, oh, like, yeah, like I can be around this, but just like make sure you don't kiss me or, and like then getting into the details of it. But for like a first impression type thing, especially that humor can be helpful as like a lead in to that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. All right. So next, we're just going to review some resources that could be applied to this age group. So we have the high school section of the guide on pages 11 through 13. And again, it might be helpful to have kids review the peer-to-peer video about modeling this kind of discussion with their friends. There's also a restaurant activity that might be good practice for the food allergic child, but especially for their friends. The activity has the student put together a safe meal with different allergens by practicing calling a restaurant or reviewing their food allergy menu. And then we also have the CFAAR Ambassadors Program, which is offered to high school students and undergraduate underclassmen, so freshmen and sophomores. And this program is a week-long intensive during the summer that introduces students to research and allows them to learn from experts in the field. And so this year, the program will take place July 28th through August 1st. And our website will be updated and applications will open at the beginning of November.
Okay, so I want to talk about tailgates. 'Tis the season for tailgates. Just went to a high school tailgate a couple weeks ago. Went to a college tailgate recently. So it is a thing in the fall, and especially in the Midwest. So Margot is going to a tailgate before the football game. She really wants to make a good impression, not stand out because of her food allergy, but she also wants to be safe and feel good the entire weekend. So I'd like to shift a little of the focus. Do you notice this good impression came up in the last scenario too? I would argue that the host of the tailgate could also make a good impression by maybe being mindful that people with food allergies might come to your tailgate. So maybe just food allergy education isn't just for the people who have food allergies, it's for everyone. And I think making a good impression can go both ways, because I know when I've gone with my son to something and there's an allergen, friendly, or, a safe food, I'm so happy. He's so happy, and we really like the host. So anyway, but back to this scenario, she's going. I think you should approach tailgates like a buffet. It just depends on how the food is, set out. You have to be really careful of cross contact. My go-to tip for you is to eat before you go, so that you don't arrive starving just to find out that everything's been, cross contact. There's been like all this cross contact. So be sure to like kind of eat something before you go. And then depending on the tailgate and who's hosting it and how you know this person, like you might bring something to share. It's something that you can eat, but that you could also share. So that way you'd know you'd have some food. If you maybe don't know them as well, you might just want to bring some extra food and have it in your bag for you. If you're hosting the tailgate, it's really helpful if you have chips, for example, just keep the bag with the label on it right next to the chips. That way, Margot doesn't have to walk around, find you and say, do you know what kind of chips these are and where they were made and what they contain? Margot can see the bag sitting next to it, look at it, and make her decision. So that's something, a tip on that way.
No,
Also,
Sarah, better yet, if they could also not dump out all the contents of the bag, so that maybe Margot could get the chips directly from the bag, so that there wasn't any cross contact with where
yes.
the food was being served. I always get really excited when I'm somewhere and they've done that, whether intentionally or unintentionally, but then I know that nothing has touched those.
That's a great point, because people might be grabbing the, one chip and then their hand goes into that next basket. So that's cross contact too. Good point. Yeah, I think that at some tailgates, their alcohol is served, and just something to have on your radar. Not all alcohol is safe from a food allergy perspective. Like there's some drinks, think eggnog has eggs, Bailey's might have milk. There are beers that have wheat and gluten. There's a New York sour that contains egg. So that you just have to be a little heads up to that alcohol part of it also. And always, whenever you go anywhere, you should be carrying your emergency medicine, your epinephrine, your emergency kit. Get a cool bag or something, something to carry it in that's festive. Some stadiums only allow clear bags to go in, and but if they see it's epinephrine and it's your medicine, no problem. So just know that that can happen. And I guess the other thing I was going to say is just, again, to remember the focus of the tailgate. Tailgates, the reason they happen is typically to gather people. Maybe it's your meeting spot before the game. You all meet at the tailgate. Maybe it's a family has a member playing on this whatever team, and they're all gathering. So, let's all meet there and make it fun. Colleges often have tailgates for alumni or for parents. Again, shift the focus. Everyone wants and needs community. So the purpose of the tailgate is just to meet people and socialize. The food is also there. So that has to be navigated, but there are ways to navigate it, like things I just mentioned. I don't know if Sam and Melissa, if you have other comments to that.
I think you covered most of it. I just wanted to go back to the clear bag thing. Sometimes that kind of stresses me out for, whether it's, a game or a concert or something. Like if it's your medication, they have to let you bring your medication, even if you don't have a clear bag. So just keep that in mind.
Okay, good point.
Yeah, I've never been to something where they didn't let me bring it in. It just sometimes I end up having to talk to uh someone else. So it can be frustrating, but it's something that is usually very smooth. It's almost like you have a golden ticket with your
Mhm.
epinephrine or molecular bracelet or any of the supplies that you
Yeah, good reminder on the clear bag. Yeah, there was something, we went to a Major League Baseball game this summer and I didn't have a clear bag, but the stadium required it. But in my bag was my son's medicine, and they did allow us to go in, now that you say that, when I showed them what it was. So
Mhm.
yeah, there are workarounds when it's medicine. And I do feel like those sometimes when you wear those bracelets, it helps. Like if you have some other kind of thing,
Yeah,
I don't think you
definitely.
have to have it, but it kind of says, oh, see, I wear this bracelet for this too.
Mhm.
Something like that. Yeah, but tailgates are fun. Like all this stuff is really fun. You just have to kind of shift. Everyone can have fun, whether you have food allergies or not. But you just have to navigate the food, and it can be done. You just need a plan.
Agreed. Well said.
Hmm.
All right, so lastly, we're going to review some resources that can be applied to this age group. So we have the college section of the guide, which can be found on pages 14 and 15. You'll find a Northwestern specific toolkit and then a general toolkit template that could be adapted to any college. And these toolkits provide guidance and resources for navigating the transition to college with a food allergy and educating peers on food allergies. In addition, the videos showcase college students discussing their personal experiences navigating college with their food allergies. And then we have the CFAAR Scholars Program, which is a 7-week-long internship where students will learn about research, gain hands-on experience helping with our research projects, and learning from experts in the field. This year, the program will take place June 16th through August 1st, and our website will be updated and applications will open at the beginning of October. And so thank you so much for joining us. Before we move to questions, just a few quick announcements. If your school would like any food allergy books for their library, let us know. We'd be happy to donate some. And then also be on the lookout for more information about the CFAAR and MOCA Halloween webinar that will be on October 16th. All right, so any questions?
While people might be writing in their questions, I had something, Sam shared a good story of like her practicing reading food labels with her mom. And for little children and like think toddlers, preschoolers, maybe even some kids where, language is, and maybe they're a little they're pre-verbal still. I think it's important to know that in early childhood, what we advise is the message stop, look, ask, go. So you want them to stop before they eat, look at the food, ask an adult if it's okay, and then go if the adult says it's okay. But this look and ask, the reason we don't say stop, read, and go is because they're so little they can't read. So establishing for little children like who's in charge is really important, because who's person in charge is the one who has to read the labels. But I agree with the example of Sam, that as soon as you can start showing them what to do, practice it at home, model it. So it's really helpful for children, even if they're little.
And Sarah, I think that it's a unique difficulty of food allergies, especially when you compare it to some other types of medical conditions in which the daily management is more in the hands of like the physicians, is that with little kids, they might know more about their food allergies than the adults that are taking care of them in some ways, especially like maybe not in like preschool, but especially in like the elementary and middle school years. And it's kind of this interesting developmentally when the adult is supposed to be in charge and the person that knows how to handle these situations and keeping kids safe in general, but the person with the food allergies who's much younger might actually be more knowledgeable and have to advocate. And a lot of kids that I know with food allergies have very good self-advocacy and communication skills for their age because they've had to communicate. But it can be just really important to teach children to communicate in developmentally appropriate ways and to ask questions and to advocate for themselves from a really young age.
Yeah, and it helps when, in that, I agree with your example, when there is like a, a second grader that really knows a lot about their food allergy, it helps when the parent tells the adult in charge, like they really know it, like just to, sometimes you have to educate the adult in charge that they can trust what the child's telling them because they know it well. So that's good for parents to kind of help out the adult as well. I agree.
All right, so just one final announcement. We'll send out an email with all of the resources and a link to the recording later on. And please email cfar@northwestern.edu if you have any questions or if you would like any of the books that we had previously mentioned. Thank you again so much for joining us this evening, and have a great rest of your night.
Thank you.